Welcome to Foxhole Symphony, a podcast about the transformational value of men in authentic community.
In our Foxhole, men are equipped to build relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth.
Stop believing the lie that you can thrive in isolation and instead
join us on the journey from broken to whole. Hey, welcome back to the Foxhole Symphony podcast. We're glad to have you with us. And hey, Mark.
Good morning.
Good to see you, my man.
You too, bro. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm very excited to talk about storms, the storms in our lives.
It works for me because I'm a weather geek amongst the other geekiness I have, a Bible nerd, weather geek, you pick it. And I was just telling Sarge a moment ago that this afternoon here where we're sitting today, it doesn't matter what day it is, we're supposed to have some wicked thunderstorms. So excellent timing for the topic here.
They come and go. Being the weather geek that you are.
Yes.
Not that I want to dive right into weather, but I mean, what comes to mind for you? I mean, where do these storms come from, meteorologist Mark?
The storms in my life or the storms in the clouds?
Well, you decide.
Clouds have something to do with God's plan in this Earth's rotation and heat, but that's another story. I really like a lot. Actually, my family and I enjoy standing on our screened-in porch when there's a wicked storm. Because you get the wind through the screens, you get a little bit of the water, but not too much. And you get to see that power really interests us and kind of amazes us with all the greens around, trees blowing around, flowers flying through the air, little animals,
right?
Things like that.
Flying squirrel.
Right, exactly. We really enjoy seeing that power. So this really resonates with me. The storms in my life are very similar. I don't have the same enthusiastic passion for my life storms, but they are fleeting. I mean, they have a lot in common. They come and go, right? They're in your life for a moment. You get a chance to experience them. In the case of the thunderstorm or the small, the mini hurricanes we get here in the Northeast, it's pretty cool to see that kind of power at work. And then I leave with a little elation, but wonder. That's the word I think that would best describe how I feel after experiencing that, feeling that wind blowing on me. And then I compare it to what we're really talking about today, where I'm thinking about life storms. Elated would not be the first word that comes to mind, yet there is a power in that.
Yeah, that's what comes to mind for me. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind with storms is power. I mean, I can remember being a kid sitting on the beach. Like we would run, you'd be on vacation. We would be on vacation. Storms coming through, down at the Jersey Shore, we would run to the beach as the storm arrives just to feel the intensity, feel the power, right?
So everybody does this.
Yeah, the sand whipping right into your legs like needles.
Yeah, that's it.
And you're like, yes, this is awesome. Watching the surf just crashing. I mean, and feeling that, right? Hurricanes coming through and in those days, not so many devastating, hurricanes, but these hurricanes coming through and, just being out there and feeling that, leaning into the wind and again, listening to the crashing waves.
I love it. I mean, it's such a great memory. I realized at some point in my life, let's call it the last 15, 20 years, all of a sudden, the term nor'easter just meant something to me, like in the past. Oh, we're having a nor'easter.
Right. I remember having to look that up. I'm like, what the heck is a nor'easter?
Right. Does it come out of the northeast?
Right.
Or is it heading
to
northeast? Right. And then all of a sudden you kind of picture yourself. I picture myself on a map going,
right.
Okay.
Now I get it.
Right. Yeah. Cold air from this direction, moisture from this direction, storm. Right. Good. So yeah, nor'easter took on a whole different perspective and meaning to me at some point. And now I really like hearing that. I mean, I do check the weather every night. I admit it.
Yeah.
I check the sports scores, watch a few clips on ESPN app or whatever it is, and I know for a few days. And Maria makes fun of me every time. Oh, here we go. Here's the weather forecast.
Right.
And by the way,
you're perfect for Florida. It's time. It's time for you to move to Florida.
It's the same weather every day.
Well, no, because that's the topic of conversation every day. When we lived in Florida, I mean, everybody, it's just all you talk about is the weather.
Really?
Yeah. Even though it's the same, because there's always a storm coming.
All right. Every afternoon, 3:00.
Right.
Florida. Yeah. Well, I think it's the best part about it is I tell my wife something about the weather. she lovingly puts up with that 30, 45-second report of mine. And then we both know it's 50-50.
Right.
The weather forecast is a joke.
Right.
Oh, watch out. Big storm's coming. Nah, sun's out.
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, a big storm's coming, and they because of the varying intensity, some do more damage than others, right? And so, as we look at the storms in our life, the same is true, right? There are storms of varying intensity in our lives, and the damage that those storms do also varies, and we've talked about, we had a whole episode on suffering, and we might touch on suffering a bit as it relates to storms, but I just think it's worth noting that these storms in our lives can come from multiple places.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
We know that God allows them. Whether or not he causes certain storms is a whole nother topic of conversation. But, many of the storms in our lives are self-induced, right? They're the result of our own choices or decisions.
Or brokenness.
Yep. Right. Some of them we are, we're in these storms because of other people's choices or decisions or brokenness. And yet, others are just seasons of life. They're maybe not tied to, any choices or decisions or sin
or
per
one
se.
event.
They're just circumstantial.
Right.
They're just circumstantial and part of life's transitions or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's, I'm thinking of Jesus now in particular, and he had a tendency to stir things up. I don't know if he caused storms specifically, or you said God allows storms. I think he does. I think there's there can be a very productive part of a storm. You and I actually talked about that just for a minute when we talked about this topic, is that some of the good that storms do in cleaning things out in our hearts and our heads, as well as in the world. You think of a example of a firestorm. Okay. That's just a particular type of storm. And the destruction a firestorm can do, and you say, oh my gosh, it burned down this many acres of forest. And that's what we get the report, right? This many hundreds of thousands of acres is burning down. Yeah. And there's a whole nother group of biologists that will tell you how important that was for that ecosystem.
Right.
Essential.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they do burns.
Yeah.
Just so forests can thrive and grow back and so on and so forth. I don't understand all the details about it, but let's agree that storms, while have destructive properties and very productive properties as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the quotes I love that I don't know that anybody came up with, it may have been me, but, it's just that sometimes it takes a storm to rebuild. Sometimes it takes a storm to rebuild. And, there are certain aspects of our lives that need rebuilding. They need rebuilding. They need to be torn down and built back up.
Sure.
And it's just one of the ways that I believe God uses, certain circumstances or storms in our lives, whether they're self-induced or not. God will use them, can use them, and often does to build us back up.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And, storms have a tendency to make us better or bitter.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say.
Depending on our perspective.
Right.
Right. So
is the storm coming at you, or are you just kind of in the neighborhood?
Right.
Right.
So let's talk about that for a second. I mean, what do we do with these storms in our lives? You mentioned different types of storms. You have fires, you have floods, you have hurricanes, blizzards, all these different types of storms. Right. And I would propose that the course of action for each of these is not the same. So for example, we've had recently, it's very bizarre, but recently we've had a ton of tornado watches. I don't know if you've noticed that, but these last few weeks, it's like beep, 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 the phones start
2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which in the Northeast is a little unusual, but, or at least not frequent. So what do they tell you to do? Hunker down.
Hunker down, hide.
Take shelter.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
What do you do in a fire? I mean, listen, if I'm in a fire, I'm running.
Okay.
I'm getting the heck out of Dodge.
All right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking find someplace safe.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But tornado literally, they're like, okay, get to the close, the
Get
center,
in a doorway.
in a doorway, center,
in the basement,
right? Like stay there. In other words, don't move, don't move.
Okay, I got it. I see where you're going.
Hurricanes, on the other hand, evacuation route.
Right.
Right. And some of that has to do with the amount of time maybe you have, right? Tornado watch, it's like, boom, it's right on you.
Right.
But, hurricanes, it's like, okay, get out to a certain point. Then it's, okay, don't get out. How about a flood?
Get out.
And up.
Up. Yeah.
Right. Rise above.
Sure.
Rise above or you're toast.
Right.
So it's just interesting. Like, I think.
Head for the high ground.
Yes. So there's seasons in our lives and there are storms in our lives that require different responses. Sometimes it's move, sometimes it's action.
I like that. Yeah.
And others it's hunker down. Sometimes it's rise above. Maybe it just requires a different perspective. I think of being in a plane, taking off in the storm.
Sure.
Right. And then the plane gets up above the storm, above the clouds. And
right.
It's
like, always sunny at 36,000 feet. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just reminds me of God's perspective.
It's the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is about blizzards, because this was not in my youth, but as an adult, I find blizzards to be comforting because everything shuts down. You stay in your house with your family. The food that you have is what you get. Don't travel. The roads aren't salted.
Yeah.
But a good blizzard here in the Northeast is a day.
Yes.
So that's the real hunker.
That's what you're supposed to do. Sarge and his family don't do this. Now, you may recall a time. I'm about to tell a story you may or may not remember. You'll remember once I start telling it. But ironically, it's occurring to me all the instances in our lives that have storms involved.
Okay.
First one that comes to mind, because you just mentioned the blizzard. I know you're not thinking about this, but stick with me. So listen, we don't sit still in the Sargent household, mostly because I'm like, oh, come on, it's snowing. Look at the blizzard. Let's go somewhere.
Okay.
So kids are young. I get the family in the car, and we have friends that live on the other side of the mountain. We were going to the Van Asselstons.
Okay.
And it was evening. I don't know, definitely dark. And we're like, no, we'll make it. It's like a mile and a half up and over the mountain. So we go. There was one road closed, which is why we had to go up and over the mountain. And we get stuck on top of the mountain. We're stuck. Do you remember this?
I do now.
Who do I call? I call Mark Vesper. And I'm like, I'm stuck with my family in the middle of a blizzard on the mountain. What are you doing right now? Can you come rescue us?
Coming to rescue you.
Because I have no idea what to do.
Right. I remember the hurricane story now.
There you go. So here's another one. Right.
That's my favorite.
Well, let me just, by the way, you came, you rescued us, picked my family up. We left the car.
Right. In the blizzard.
In the middle of the road.
And they plowed it under.
They did. But my family was safe, and you brought us right back home. You're like, okay, don't do that
again. I didn't say half the things I was thinking at the moment.
Storm number 2.
This is my favorite.
In our lives. I'm in Zimbabwe.
Right.
Family here
with my wife,
with Maria,
right,
and a large group of people, and I don't even know what storm hit, but it was a massive one,
huge hurricane.
Okay, that's right, it was a hurricane, and all I remember is thinking, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I'm not there with my family, 2 young kids, my wife, and I remember getting like an SOS message that our house is flooding. Filling with water from the bottom up. And I'm like, I can't help you. I don't know what to do. Call Mark. And she did. And you can't. Yeah. And you went and you're bailing water and just constantly.
Christina called and said, I'm in the basement in water up to my knees. And I thought, well, so I get in the truck. Yeah. This was the time in the hurricane, and Maria hates me to talk about this, but I drove under felled trees over in a truck, the white F-150.
Yeah.
Over trees. I had power lines. I put my arm out the window. I lifted the power lines
Stop
over
it.
the truck. It rubbed across the top of the truck as I'm trying to get to your
Quick disclaimer, please don't try that at home.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to the power company. Moron is moving power lines with his hands. But I couldn't get to your house.
Oh my
You were
gosh.
just too close to the damn river.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that was, and by the way, I think the moral to the story was the pipes from your house to the road were clogged.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
backing up into our house.
Into your house.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks
So
for rescuing my family twice. But here's the thing. So while you're doing that, I'm in Zimbabwe gathering like 50 Zimbabweans in prayer. I'll never forget where we were. Like, you're bailing water and all we can do is pray. So, here's two great examples,
There you go.
right? What do you do in the storms of your life? Who's in your foxhole? Call them.
Right.
Ask for help. Right? And pray.
There you go. The theme here now is the value of a good storm. For me, the value of a storm is coming out of it. Okay. Perfect 2020 hindsight is my friend trusted me to help him in his time of greatest need. And it just cemented our relationship. It's more mortar for the great relationship we were building over these last 15 years together.
Yeah.
And we've been tested by storms.
Absolutely.
Those are the physical ones. There's psychological, mental, and emotional and spiritual ones.
Countless.
We could list too.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, there's so many great ministries out there and organizations, right? Disaster relief, organizations, and great opportunities. You don't know, hey, if you're out there and you don't know where to jump in and join God at work, find one of those organizations. If you're plugged into a local church, great. Find out what mission trips are coming up and what they're doing. And not that that's necessarily why you go, right? But joining God at work in that way, in service. And I mean, Christina and I, when we were youth leaders in our first church ministry, volunteer role, we used to go and take the kids, to various places, these group work camps, and for a week and do hurricane relief, North Carolina, Vermont. We went to all, after the hurricanes, we'd go in, groups with Samaritan's Purse after Hurricane Sandy, going out to Long Island and various, and man, there's something really special. So many things that happen. Meeting the families, these homeowners, and them going, countless times I remember hearing, why are you doing this? Like, why are you here? Why did you took a week, you paid to be here, and here you are. Like, why are you here? Helping us.
I understand.
And we get to say, because God loved us first.
Right.
And here we are, and he loves you. And so it's just, what an incredible opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus and in people's time of need.
You hesitated just to answer that because of how your heart is wired now. First of all, bless you for doing those kinds of things. The world needs more and more and more people that'll stand up and just go. See a need, go. You and I have talked how many times about experiencing God.
Yeah.
See God at work. Go there.
Get in.
And it's what you're doing. And someone says, why are you doing this? And because this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we're wired, is to serve.
Yeah.
And it's born from a love relationship that we have with each other and with him. Absolutely.
It's in response. It's in response to God's rescue of us. Right. And so, yes, so many incredible things come out of that. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's pointing people to Jesus. It's pointing people to Jesus.
Right.
Listen, it's not lost on me that some storms are so devastating that, the rebuild, maybe never happens, and I get it. There's tragedy in that, and we don't have all the answers, but God's at work in the storms.
Yeah, let's transition to the human element of this. I mean, you can continue with the physical storm, the blizzard, the volcano, whatever we're talking about, but there's humans involved. I say too flippantly these days that humans tend to screw things up. Everything's going fine until we get involved. I get involved. But the human element to storms and the recovery process is one that, just fits so nicely with the essence of and the principles we used in developing this podcast idea about transformational value of men in Christian community, authentic community. Trying to recover from life storms on your own should be another, the horn should be going off, the alarm should be, I can't do this by myself.
Right.
Right? I'm going to stay away from the physical part and just stay stuck in some of the recovery from devastating loss. Physical loss. I lost my house in this storm or my car in this storm. And there's so many pieces to that. But your heart, the damage to hearts in storms of life, loss of family, friends, addiction, all the things that draw us down, suck energy from us and make us stop. And first of all, say, thank you, Lord God, for the blessings I have in my life.
Yeah.
Not be cynical and pour back into folks that need help in that recovery process. Neither one of us, we've admitted enough times, just not trained in that.
Yeah.
But we have poured out our hearts, our wallets, our time, our treasures to folks that are recovering from one thing or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, like I said, it's an expression of who God is. Right. As our protector and our provider. He's a refuge in time of trouble, right? I mean, there are a number of, scriptures regarding storms, and it's what God calls us to. In Isaiah 4, he's a shelter and a shade from the heat of the day, a refuge and hiding place from the storm.
Well, today, dude, in the Bible app today, the verse for the day is strong tower. The strong tower verse.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. Like, we get to be that. Like, God calls us to be a provider, to be the provision when there's loss. Right. To be people's protector, to invite people into our home, to be a strength. Go ahead. You can read it.
I got it. It's Proverbs 18:10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The godly run to him and are safe.
Yeah.
Tracks right on.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And so, sometimes we need people in our lives to help us run to him, to remind us to run to him, to encourage us to run to him, or to put us on their backs and carry us to them. Or again, like, not that we're God, but to be his hands and feet as he calls us to. And
that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And now that I'm thinking about, for me, Captain Obvious, seeing the devastation of a storm, what it does physically to us and then to people. But when I think about recovering from storms with people, it's the hidden, it's the things you can't see.
Yes.
The damage that's done, that each of us is so different. What might just crush you.
Yeah.
And things I know about that have crushed you.
Yeah.
There have been times I went, well, that's not a weakness or an area of mine that I'm recovering from, but I can pour into you and help you do that.
Yeah. Seeing
people and taking them at their face value as a beautiful creation of God's before I measure them and judge them, because I have a horrible judgmental heart that I'm working on.
Yeah.
But trying to help people through a recovery process, just lately, addiction is right in front of my face. It's, the dinner we attended for our hub last night with Pete, and we just dropped his episode, right?
Yes.
So shout out to Pete Gatto and our hub.
Yes. r-hub.org, recovery hub. Check it out.
Right. And so that recovery process isn't something I'm really familiar with, but at the same time, I was able yesterday, without going into the whole story, just prior to leaving for that fundraiser and dinner with Pete and his team, somebody called me and said, I need help. There's a person that I know very closely. They need help. Mark, you have to help me connect them.
Yeah.
And my only role in that recovery process from the storm in that man's life, and this man had an alcohol addiction problem.
Yeah.
My only role was a catalyst. I was just connecting dots.
Yeah.
But that's how God used me at that time. Someone knew enough to call me.
Yeah.
And said, can you connect me to somebody?
Yeah.
Connected him to Pete.
Yeah. And, and then beyond that, there's a whole nother layer to this, that the storms in our lives become the very thing that connect us to someone in the future, right? Or the hope that we can bring to someone in the future that may be going through the very storm that we came through.
That's a great point.
In our lives. And that's the journey we're on. I mean, that is how we find hope and encouragement and strengthen each other and love one another.
That's what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, going back, when you're in the storm, man, I can so easily become bitter in the storm.
Sure.
I can lose faith. I can start questioning. And yet, and those are all natural. They're natural tendencies to doubt, to question, to wonder, to lose hope. These are things in the storm, which is why we need community, right? I don't know about you. I would love to know if there was a sort of one key major storm in your life. Not to put you on the spot. Maybe I'll share one and give you time to kind of think of one, just because it's so easy for me to think of it. But for me, the biggest storm in my life, and this was in college, college age. I mean, this is almost 30 years ago. Young adult, and I got into some trouble, made some horrible choices. This was a storm that I brought on myself. Actually came to faith during that time, and very early on in my faith, end up before a judge, and as a kind of a new believer and new in the faith, I found all these scriptures in the Bible that were promises taken totally out of context that would deliver me from this storm. And I had full confidence that I would walk out of that courtroom.
Your Honor, it says in Proverbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I can see you.
And here I am, with my girlfriend and my parents in the courtroom, and I get handcuffed and shackled and sentenced, to a lengthy jail sentence, prison sentence. And in that moment, I mean, I can put myself right back there, but I'm thinking, this is the end. This is the end. Like, this is the end of me. And the reality is, it was a beginning.
Sure.
I mean, it was a beginning, and
hindsight is great, isn't it?
Yeah. And the next 18 months of incarceration was both the worst and best season of my life, because I had nobody but the Lord. I mean, it was just, okay, Lord, this is, it's me and you. I'm leaning in. I say nobody. There were people. God put people, in my path and brought people to my doorstep just when I needed them at the right times throughout the course of that 18 months. But, just a horrific storm of my life, self-induced, albeit.
Yep.
And a time of rebuilding and construction, and rescue of my whole being, who I was, and specifically spiritually.
Thanks for being so honest about that. Love it. And I know, obviously, I know the story, and I know the next 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. Almost 30 years.
Right. Almost 30 years. I know the story, and I've been part of it for 15, and I can vouch for the best part of your life and the foundation you built at that time, and what I've seen happen to Rocket Sarge since that time.
God is good. He's so gracious, and so many miracles in there. And one day I'd love to maybe I'll do an episode on just that season, because it's there's a lot of God sightings and miracles during that season. But yeah, what do you got?
I just want you to know, I don't know who else will listen to that, but I will come and listen to that story. I love that story. What do I got? I don't have a rags to riches story, as you know. I don't have that cathartic moment, but my divorce comes to mind as a stormy season of my life a long time ago, right? 35 years ago. But what really, I think what's worth talking about is when my mom's passing. And the length of that storm was a very long time.
Yeah.
That's a weather prediction that came true.
Wow.
A doctor told us the recidivism rate on her cancer was high. And if it came back, it was fatal, right? So radiation, chemo, everything that you know that we went through. But my brother Danny and I had a chance to walk with her at this time through this storm. It was awful. Yeah. Trying to tell you she can't drive anymore, right? My mom lived life fully for 85 years. Yeah. She lived till 89, but for 85, she rocked the world. She just had it. She had it
joyfully.
Yes. And ultimately, we had to make a lot of changes in her life that she didn't want to deal with. I mean, there were some stormy days.
Yeah.
Long story made short, because I was able to talk to her about God's plan for her life and what she needed to get done and pour into her kids and her grandkids and her great grandkids in this time that she had, whatever it was. If she proved the doctors wrong and lived another 10 years, hallelujah. Yeah. Right. But presuming the doctor might be right, we made some choices of what to do. And Sarge, this just wiped me out. It challenged me in ways I had never been challenged before. Imagine me sitting across from my mom. She's in her Barca Lounger, the electronic reclining chair that we now have in our basement right outside the studio, the Foxhole here. And I'm sitting with her knee to knee, holding her hands and tears running down our face, talking about changing this account and moving, who am I leaving my car to? Mm-hmm. The conversations you never really want to have, but everyone said you need to do this. Well, we did it, and we did it well with my mom. We weathered that storm and celebrated her life with her in the end, and even at the end, had a chance to honor God and say thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for this part of the journey. As much as I miss her,
right,
every day,
yeah,
I'm that mama's boy. That I can smell her. Yeah, some days, but I can tell you that we had a chance. God gave us an opportunity, unwittingly, to walk with her through this storm, and it was beautiful.
Yeah,
it took a little hindsight for me to feel this way about it, but it changed my life.
Yeah.
And it changed the life of a lot. My mom's pebble in the pond is still rippling today.
Yeah. Especially in your heart.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it. I've seen it and sensed
changed me.
It's awesome.
Yep.
There's so much more that we could talk about. I want to maybe just end with a couple of scripture references.
Sure.
That are they're clear, they're concise, they're direct. And they're consistent. They're consistent. And if you kind of search for, scriptures about storms, you'll get, mostly the same sort of sense of what God is calling us to. Mark chapter 4, verse 39. And he arose, he rebuked the wind and said unto the peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Right? And so the disciples in the boat, and here's Jesus. I could just see him, he's like,
I love it.
I got this.
Can you imagine, Peter? Wait a minute.
But I love it. Peace, be still, right? Like, I mean, there's so many, in the Psalms, talks about, Psalm 89, you rule over the surging sea. When its waves mount up, you still them. Psalm 107, they cried out to the Lord in their trouble. He brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. He guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. So much there. So much there about how God uses storms to draw us back to him, to show us who he is, and help us understand who we are in him.
Yeah, Psalms 88 and 89 are so powerful. They're positioned right where they are in a specific spot at the kind of the end of the third book in Psalms. It's awesome. I love them. Thanks for bringing that up.
The best one to me, and it's one that many will be familiar with, but it's Psalm 46. It's Psalm 46. And I'll read it. I think it's great to maybe end with this.
Yeah, let's do it.
It says, God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. A river brings joy to the city of our God, the sacred home of the Most High. God dwells in that city. It cannot be destroyed. From the very break of day, God will protect it. The nations are in chaos, and their kingdoms crumble. God's voice thunders, and the earth melts. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. Come, see the glorious works of the Lord. See how he brings destruction upon the world. He causes wars to end throughout the earth. He breaks the bow and snaps the spear. He burns the shields with fire. I mean, there's so much here. There is so much, quote unquote, chaos, right?
Great pictures. Yeah. Great mental pictures.
And then verse 10, be still and know that I am God. Just be still and know I got this. I'm God. We're not, right? He's God. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world. Verse 11, the Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress.
Shout out to Benny King. The song Stand By Me borrows from Psalm 46.
Is that right?
Yeah, think about it.
Didn't know that.
I won't cry. I won't be afraid as long as you stand by me. He talks about the mountains will crumble to
That's
the
right.
sea.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. We were just talking about this the other night. Is why I remember that. That's
so
a great
glad.
ending. I don't think we can do any better than that.
Yeah. So, friends, in the midst of your storm, be still. Know that he is God. He is among you. He is for you. And so are we.
Amen. Find a friend that you can call in a blizzard.
Somebody to come bail water.
That's it.
This was fun. Love you, brother.
You too, man.
All right. Peace.
See ya.
Be still.
Hey, gang. This last episode on storms was just a great conversation between me and Sarge. We talked about some real-life examples of physical storms we've experienced in our lives and some exciting rescue stories as well. We talked about our role in storms is to point people to Jesus and agreed that God is at work in these storms. We asked you who's in your foxhole when you experience life storms, the emotional, spiritual, physical ones. The Bible uses words like shelter, shade, strong tower, and refuge to describe God's role in the storms in our life. We discussed the value of community in storms and how essential it is to surround ourselves for this battle. We ended with a conversation about a storm in Sarge's life and in mine, and some God sightings that we've both experienced as a result of those. I'll end with two challenges for you. First is look up Psalm 46. The second is don't do it alone. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk again soon.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it and invite others to the Foxhole. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop, and please rate us and comment there too, as it'll help us get found by others who could benefit. Find, follow, and like us on your go-to social media networks by searching Foxhole Symphony, or visit foxholesymphony.com to make it super easy to find us. Drop us a line with feedback, questions, topic requests, who knows? Maybe you'll be a guest on a future episode. In the meantime, prepare to move, embrace discomfort, and just be you.